The World Cup 2026 is officially over, guys. It's been a few days. I've had some time to process my emotions, to process the whole competition, and I thought it's the perfect time to finally talk about it. Say what I liked about the World Cup, what I didn't like, what could have been done better, what was amazing, and why this was both a historic World Cup but also a very controversial World Cup. The first thing I want to start off by talking about is the whole structure of the World Cup, guys. So obviously, this World Cup was hosted across 3 different countries, Canada, Mexico, and USA, for the first time in World Cup history. And we saw it in 16 different cities, including 2 in Canada, Toronto and Vancouver, 3 in Mexico, Guadalajara, Mexico City, and Monterrey. And in USA, there was the other 11 cities: Atlanta, Boston, Dallas, Houston, Kansas City, Los Angeles, Miami, New York, Philadelphia, San Francisco, and Seattle. Now, guys, was I a big fan of this? Honestly, I didn't mind the 3 different countries. I thought that was a decent structure, and I think in the future, doing a World Cup in 2 or 3 different countries isn't necessarily a bad thing. But what that does provide is it provides the fan experience to be, first of all, much more expensive, and second of all, it makes it much harder to go to many different games. Obviously, guys, with some games being in Canada, Mexico, and USA, if you're a fan and your team is playing in multiple different countries, all that travel cost is going to be a lot of money. And talking about money, the ticket prices of this World Cup were absolutely ridiculous. Guys, as you can see online, it says the cheapest World Cup final tickets had a minimum sale price of over $6,000, an average sale price of almost $10,000, and a median sale price of $8,000. Guys, this is insane. This is absolutely insane. For a World Cup final, you're saying you need to spend a minimum of $6,000. First of all, the stay alone, if you're staying for like 2 nights in the city of New York, was probably over $1,000. The flight, if you're coming from Europe or Africa or South America, wherever it is, was probably also a couple thousand. So pretty much to watch the World Cup final, you probably got to spend at least $10,000 to $15,000 for one match. That is probably the worst thing of this World Cup. Like I said, in terms of locations, in terms of cities, it was a little bit strange. It was almost a little bit messy, but the ticket prices for me was the worst thing of the whole structure of the World Cup. In terms of the cities, they were okay. I think they probably could have chosen better cities. I think the divide between Canada, Mexico, and USA should have been more fair, because Canada, I think, only had 13 or 14 games, and same with Mexico. The best games in both of those countries were round of 16 games, whereas all the later stage games were all in the US. So I feel like the divide between countries could have been a little bit more fair. But with that being said, I'd probably give the structure of the 2026 World Cup a 6 out of 10. I think it could have been much better, but it wasn't as bad as I maybe initially thought. Now, guys, continuing on with a similar theme to the structure, we're going to talk about the new format of the World Cup. Obviously, guys, this was the first time we saw a 48-team World Cup. Normally, we see 32 teams. So we had an additional 16 teams. And because of that, we saw a lot of third place teams make it into the knockout stages. Teams like Bosnia, teams like Paraguay, teams like Ecuador. A lot of these teams, even like of Sweden, they didn't have the best group stages. And some of these teams only won 1 game or didn't even get a win. Some of them just drew multiple games and they still made it into the next round. Obviously, with the new format, there's going to be more teams in the round of 32, because we don't go straight into the round of 16. We have the round of 32. So there is an extra game. There is 8 total games compared to the 7 total games of previous World Cups. Was I a fan of this? Honestly, guys, I thought the new format was actually successful. I think that the new 48-team World Cup was very good. And the reason for this is because I felt like the group stages in this World Cup were incredible, almost unlike any other World Cup. And the reason for that, I think, was because of that extra spot that you can possibly get in 3rd place. Therefore, it makes every single game competitive, because even if you're a team like Senegal and you lost to France and Norway in the first game, they were gunning down Iraq. They scored, I think it was 5 goals against Iraq, because they needed the goal difference to make it to the knockout stages. So that makes all the games more competitive. It gives some of these smaller teams a bit of an edge and more of a possibility to advance into the knockout stages. And I feel like we also saw a decent amount of upsets. We saw the like of Cape Verde make it to the knockout stages, which is crazy. So in terms of the new format of the World Cup, I actually enjoyed it. I would give it a 9 out of 10. Whether or not a 64 team would be good or not, that's maybe a discussion for in future years. But for the 48 team format, I would give it a 9 out of 10. Now, the next rating we have to give is to the controversy of the World Cup. This comes with a lot of different aspects, mainly officiating, but also, guys, we need to talk about the president and his involvement in the World Cup, because there was a lot of controversy in the World Cup. Before we talk about how the group stages went and how the knockout stages were, we need to talk about the controversy, because we saw controversy throughout the whole tournament. For example, the like of Messi stepping on the Algerian player's foot back in the group stages probably should have been sent off. The way that Argentina seemingly got so many calls going for them with no calls going against them. Guys, if you saw, there's a stat online going around where Argentina got, I think it's almost 10 calls for them and 0 calls against them, which is crazy. But with that being said, the controversy was clearly evident in this World Cup, and there was clearly favoritism. Guys, even at the start of the World Cup, for everyone that says whether the World Cup was rigged or not, it was 100% rigged, because Gianni Infantino made it so that the top 4 teams in the world couldn't play each other until they reached the semifinals. And if we look at the knockout stages in the semifinals, who do we see? The top 4 teams in the world: France, Spain, England, and Argentina. And these 4 teams could not play each other earlier on in the bracket, because that's the way that Gianni Infantino wanted it to be. So whether you say it's rigged or not, it was 100% rigged, because it wasn't 100% random. France couldn't play Spain in the round of 32, in the round of 16, because Gianni Infantino made it so that they're both on each corner of the bracket and they can't play until the semifinals. So it was rigged, and therefore I feel like we didn't see any unexpected teams in the semifinals. I think everyone that was in the semifinals was expected. I would have loved to see a team like Morocco, a team like Portugal, a team like Norway, a team like Mexico in the semifinals, but due to that inability to play each other before the semifinals, we only saw the top 4 teams, and I do think that isn't really the best option. I would like it to be a little bit more random. And guys, obviously we have to talk about the Donald Trump situation where Balogun got the red card, and Donald Trump, he went ahead, he called Gianni Infantino, "Hey yo, Gianni, Balogun needs to play." That's what Trump said. And you know what Gianni Infantino said? He said, "Okay." And Balogun played in that game against Belgium. Now, obviously, USA got smoked by Belgium. They were horrible. They lost 4-1 in that round of 16 game. But the way that you suspend a player, he gets a red card, you suspend him, and then you take away the suspension and you let him play the next game is disgraceful. Was the call a definite red card? I would say it was pretty 50-50. But you have to make that decision in the moment. The VAR room, the referee needs to make that decision right away. And by doing this, Gianni Infantino is basically saying that, yes, our VAR people and our referee made a mistake. So you're now showing that your referees are not fully qualified to do the job, because clearly that should have been maybe looked at further. Maybe it could have been disallowed. But you give him the red card, you need to follow up with the necessary actions. You cannot revoke the suspension. This is bullshit. It's honestly bullshit. And the fact that Donald Trump got involved, he called Infantino, and Infantino lied down and said, "Hey, Donald Trump, you're the man." It's crazy. This is football, not politics. You cannot do that. For the controversies of the World Cup, all that things happened with Argentina, the way that this World Cup was slightly rigged, the way that Balogun got his suspension revoked, for the amount of controversy that was in this World Cup, I would give that rating a 1 out of 10. There was loads and loads of controversy. Even though there was controversy in Qatar, I would still give that a 6 out of 10. There wasn't that much controversy. It was pretty good. This World Cup, there was loads of controversy all over the place. 1 out of 10 for me. That definitely brings the rating of this World Cup down, and that would definitely be the biggest talking point coming out of this World Cup. Now, guys, it's time to talk about the group stages. And to be honest, guys, in my opinion, the group stages were probably the best part of this World Cup. Like I said, with the new format, we saw many other teams in this World Cup that we don't usually see. A team like Curaçao, a team like Cape Verde, a team like Haiti, you know, even teams like New Zealand. There was so many teams that we don't normally see due to the new format. And because of that, I felt like we saw so much new cultures in the World Cup, so many new dances, so many new types of fans. And I feel like it actually made for a general better experience. Now, yes, some of these teams really underperformed. You look at a team like Uzbekistan, -9 goal difference, 3 for 3 losses. They were absolutely horrible. A team like Iraq, -11 goal difference. A team like Tunisia, -10 goal difference. Guys, these teams lost every single game. But at the same time, you also saw some of these teams perform. Like you saw, I mean, to be fair, Curaçao They were bad, but they got that draw against Ecuador, which is incredible. You saw a team like Cape Verde, who no one expected to make it out of the group. Everyone was predicting them in last place. They finished in second place. So for that reason, guys, I really enjoyed the group stages. I thought it was very different to what we normally see. I thought it was very, very entertaining. I thought the games were very, very good. I think the group stages was the best part of this World Cup. So for the group stages, I'm going to give a 9 out of 10. I don't think you can get that much better than this. I thought the group stages were absolutely incredible. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the knockout stages, guys. And we're going to go through the whole knockout stages. The round of 32, I thought was very entertaining. We saw some very, very interesting results. We saw the likes of Germany get knocked out against Paraguay, which was crazy. We saw Canada get their first knockout stage win. We saw some very, very good results. Morocco upsetting Netherlands. That Portugal versus Croatia game was incredible. I went to go watch it. If you haven't seen that video, check it out. Very entertaining video. We saw Brazil beating Japan in a very nice game. Norway beating Cote d'Ivoire. Mexico beating Ecuador. We saw some very good games in the round of 32. I was a big fan of the round of 32. But I thought since the knockout stages progressed and you kind of saw the 4 favorited teams, the top 4 teams in the world, getting results going more their way, I started to become less a fan, guys. And I'm gonna be completely honest. I do think that these teams got favorited. Argentina, they definitely got favorited. Against Egypt, against Switzerland, they definitely got favorited. England, against Mexico, and I think especially against Norway, there was some favoritism going their way. Same with France and same with Spain in some of their games. So I do think the top 4 teams were favorited in the later stages of this competition. Now, guys, we get on to the semifinals. The semifinals I thought were very good games. The bronze place final, crazy, absolutely insane. 10 goals, one of the craziest World Cup games I've ever seen in my life. But the final, guys, I was disappointed by the final. And that's why I was like, bro, why are FIFA helping Argentina so much? Because I don't think they're that good of a team. I would have much rather see England in the final against Spain, Norway in the final against Spain, Switzerland in the final against Spain. I think it would have been a more entertaining game. That final for me brought the knockout stage down a few ratings because I thought it was one team dominating the whole game against another team who couldn't string together 10 passes, who didn't have a single shot for 118 minutes, and who looked second best for the whole entire game. So the knockout stages, I think, started off very good. Round of 32, round of 16 were very good. But as we got later on into the knockout stages, it's fair to say that the quality did increase. But I think the favoritism for some of these teams also increased. And in the final, I thought it was pretty poor, and I would have rather liked to see a different final. Were Spain the deserved winners? 100%. Did Argentina deserve to make it to the final? You could say yes, the way they came back in every single game. They didn't necessarily have help. England capitulated, Switzerland capitulated, Egypt capitulated. But I would have liked to see a team like England or a team like Norway in the final against Spain. I think it would have been a more entertaining final. So for the knockout stages, I would give it a 7 out of 10. They were still very entertaining, but for me, the major highlight was the group stages. But guys, those are all my ratings for the 2026 World Cup. We rated the new format, we rated the new structure, we rated the amount of controversy in the World Cup, we rated the knockout stages and also the group stages. And in my opinion, guys, at the end of the day, I would give this World Cup a 7.5 out of 10. Looking at everything combined, I thought it was a very good World Cup. The gameplay we saw, the amount of crazy upsets that we saw was incredible. And to be fair, some of the controversy, although there was loads of it and I didn't like it, it did make for some very, very entertaining TikTok videos and memes. But at the end of the day, I do think this was a very, very successful World Cup. In terms of the gameplay alone, I think this may be one of the best World Cups I've ever seen. In terms of the whole competition, I think there has been better, but I still would consider this a successful World Cup, and I was very, very pleased with it. And I want to thank everyone for all your support during the World Cup. Guys, this World Cup was incredible. The support on the channel was incredible. The amount of growth that we saw, I think we went up 3,000 subscribers. We got to 10K, which is crazy, guys. I would have never expected this in a million years. So thank you guys so much for all the content, and best believe Nations League is around the corner in a couple months. We're going to be doing predictions, watch alongs, all that type of stuff. The Asian Cup is in half a year. We're going to be covering that extensively on the channel. And obviously, guys, during the regular season, you know, we do Champions League videos, Europa League videos. We go over all the leagues as well, Serie A, La Liga, Premier League. So guys, stay tuned for all the content coming. It's going to be an insane year ahead. But once again, thank you guys so much. I enjoyed the World Cup, but let me know in the comments down below whether or not you enjoyed the 2026 World Cup. If you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and stay tuned for more videos.